Hey guys, Ragnar54 here, and welcome back to another RuneScape video. This is going to be the third installment in my in-depth melee minion tanking series at AOD. Phase 3 is a really straightforward phase. You just need to do the abilities in the rotation. It's a little bit difficult to do all this while all the things that happen in Phase 3 are happening. Your minion is on you, there's several mechanics, you need to be moving around a little bit. So the hardest part about getting this rotation down is just going to be performing it under the stress of a real kill. There's only one new mechanic thing you need to learn for this phase, and that's 5-tick auto-attacking. It's really similar to Mage's 4-tick auto-attacking, except it takes one more tick. The idea is still kind of the same though. You just do a dual-wield ability, equip your 2H, wait for the adrenaline to come, and then use an ability. It's really as simple as that. Just go to dummies and you can see what I mean. It's very, very easy. You just use an ability, then wait to see the adrenaline go up, and then use an ability. If you're on a high ping world, you might need to input the ability before you actually see the adrenaline come up, so you need to be a little bit more experienced with the timing to do that. But if you're on a regular ping world, then it's just as easy as that. As always, the link to this picture of the rotation is going to be in the description, but let's go over the main parts of this rotation that you don't want to miss. First is zerking in the beginning after you've surged with your minion. I know a lot of people when they're learning really don't like this part of the kill because the minion's on you and there's so much happening during phase 3 mechanics wise. That said, I think it's really important to zerk at the beginning of this phase because you have the opportunity to get a greater barge because you've just used an ability which was surge, and then you can zerk and you can get the greater barge buff. And you really want to take advantage of any time that you spend not attacking to get some sort of buff, and in this case we can get greater barge. It can be okay to wait to zerk until after your minion's dead if you're on like some really slow learner teams, but if you want to learn the actual rotation that you'll be using on faster teams, then I definitely recommend zerking at the beginning of this phase. An important thing to remember during this phase is that the minion is on you and they can stun you. You need to use anticipation so that you don't get stunned, and the time that you need to use that is 3 abilities after you barge back in, assuming that you zerked as soon as you could when you got to the other side. When you're learning this rotation, obviously you're not going to get it all correct all the time, but just try to remember to at least use anticipation, because if you don't, you're going to be stunned for like 4 seconds or so, and you're really going to lose out on a lot of damage because it's during your zerk and potentially during your limitless sigil. So you really want to make sure to remember this anticipation. The second thing that's going to be helpful here is Scythe Hurricane and Scythe Cleave. It can really help clear the minions, especially if your chin is not super experienced and they're not chin sending. And besides that, as long as you kind of do like some general damage, you'll be good for phase 3 while you're learning, and you can start to perfect this rotation. Okay, so let's take a look at this rotation real quick on dummies. I'm going to pretend like I've just surged over with my minion, so I'm going to zerk and then barge in as soon as I can. I'll flank it into a Scythe Cleave, dual wield Limitless to bleed my assault, anticipation, get an auto attack in, and then Hurricane, and then Flurry here, cancel it with a Decimate into a 5-tick auto attack flank. So as you can see, it's not the hardest rotation in the world, it's obviously not the easiest rotation in the world, but as soon as you get the core things down, you can start perfecting the other parts, and really, with a few kills experience, you can get this phase down. So one other thing I want to mention that I probably should have mentioned in my other videos for phase 1 and 2 is how like auto attacks on your target work. If you do something like click on a weapon to equip it, or eat food or drink a potion or do something like that, then your character will stop attacking. So normally if you just use an ability and don't do anything, your character will then start auto-attacking the target. But if you use an ability and then click on your inventory on a weapon, for example, your character will not attack the target. For whatever reason, your character will attack the target if you use a keybind to equip your weapon. So if I equip that with a keybind, then yeah, it's fine and it'll just keep on attacking. So these are a couple of things to keep in mind during phase 3, because you're obviously going to be eating a lot of food. I'm a degenerate who clicks my food, so this is kind of a problem for me. I need to keep in mind that because I want to get an auto attack off during my anticipate, I need to keybind equip my ZGS, and if I have just eaten some food, I need to click back on next in order to get those auto attacks, because you really don't want to lose any of those. Okay, so I think it'll be better if I just show you guys some phase 3 examples so that you can see some of the optimizations I want to show you. So in this kill, I'm Glacie's tank, and that means that I'm going to have to take into account where I'm flanking from, because if I just barge in here, then I'm not going to be in flanking position, so I'm going to need to spam click after my barge, either onto that line, the north-south line, or somewhere to the east. I just do whatever I feel like in order to do my flanking. The second optimization comes immediately after, and it's about the scythe abilities. As I mentioned earlier, you want to use your scythe so that you hit Nex and all the minions that are jumbled up underneath her, but technically that's not entirely true because you can use your ZGS here instead of scythe and get tier 92 damage. You can do this by stepping underneath Nex one step closer than your character would normally sit when you're attacking her with melee distance. Then when you use the ability, it will push you back out to where you were, but it will hit all the enemies underneath her. So as you can see here, after I use my flank, I click one step underneath Nex, use my cleave, and it brings me back out. And as you can see, that cleave with my ZGS hit all of the minions and Nex. So then I'm going to limitless dual wield bleed my assault so that I can anticipate and get an auto attack off during this anticipate. And after the anticipate comes hurricane. Again, these are things that would both normally be done with a scythe. And there's two different optimizations you can do here. You can wait until the auto attack comes out with the ZGS, then switch to your scythe and hurricane. That way you at least get the tier 92 damage for the auto attack. This can be useful because it's hard to click under Nex sometimes, especially at this point, because she can do a special attack. And if she does the smoke lines one, she kind of lays her wings on the ground and it's hard to click under her. So it's a useful trick to keep under your belt. It's just equip the ZGS instead of the scythe during your anticipation, and then before the global cooldown is over, but after the auto attack adrenaline comes through, switch to your scythe in order to do the hurricane and hit all the minions. Of course, you can do the slightly more advanced version of this and just equip your ZGS the whole time, wait for the auto attack adrenaline to come out, step under Nex, and then use the hurricane. Once again, you can see that the hurricane hit all of the minions and I was pushed back out from underneath Nex, which is how you know that you did this correctly. After that is just a flurry, canceled with a decimate, into a 5-tick auto attack flank. And as you can see, the phase is pretty much over. Okay, so now that we've gone over the rotation, let's talk about the mechanics of this phase. Of course, there's the three main ones, which are the smoke pool, the ice mechanic, and the smoke lines. These are all going to be pretty easy to deal with. You just don't want to kill your team with them if you can avoid it. The smoke pools are just going to be completely ignored. One thing to remember about this is if you get a pool after or as you're about to equip your mobile switch, if you have that on like a malevolent legs like I do, keep in mind that this will reduce your trim masterwork set bonus down below 3, so you're not going to get a bleed on any of the damage anymore. So just remember that you're going to need to eat up above like 6.5k. For the ice, you just want to freedom it and then do another ability or two and then bladed dive away. Because everyone's going to be grouped up, you absolutely do not want to use your freedom even if you get stunned by your minion. So just tough it out if something bad happens or you totally mess up. Do not use freedom if you get asphyxiated by your minion, because you're going to need it in case you get an ice. If it's nearing the end of the phase, then bladed dive toward the pillar that you're going to go to first, but not right to it, because you don't want everyone else to surge there and then get hit by your ice. So a little bit away from it. Usually if Umbra is the first pillar, then I'll just bladed dive directly east so that I can power burst of acceleration out of the ice and then just get right on the pillar. So the last special attack on this phase is the smoke lines. This is a really easy special attack to deal with, and there's no reason to lose any damage or not be attacking the boss during this special attack. So if you get north or east smoke, just stand on the north-south line, either directly north or directly south of Nex, in melee distance, and then when the smoke comes, just step out of the way to the east of Nex. Sometimes you'll get this special attack right as you're moving to the first pillar. If you have the north smoke and you're standing directly on the eastern wall, or if you get the east smoke and you're standing on the southern wall, then the smoke won't actually come out, and that's a really useful trick to know. It's really easy to accidentally or intentionally kill the whole team here if you're just one square off, and it happens pretty often, so be wary of this, and if you have the special attack, please try not to PK your team. So another thing to look out for during this phase is if your minion gets mislured. Obviously, if something goes terribly wrong and your minion is like wildly mislured, you'll probably notice and be able to relure it. But sometimes people can block your minion, or you can barge in too fast, or you can block someone else's minion, so it's important to know what to do in these scenarios. The first thing is to notice if your minion gets blocked. So if someone is blocking your minion for some reason and the minion is not moving, then don't barge in yet. Remember, you barge in as soon as your minion actually gets under Nex. On the other hand, you also don't want to block other people's minions, so in order to avoid blocking anyone, you want to stand not on the X that's in the middle of the circle of the arena. So I usually stand on the north-south line or directly east of Nex. Both of these will work fine and the minions will have plenty of room to go in under Nex. If your minion does get mislured, here is a quick graphic from the 7 to 10 man Discord that shows you which tile to step to if your minion does end up getting blocked. There are some miscellaneous things that I want to mention that didn't really fit anywhere else in this video. The first one is about the 5-tick auto attack flank. This is pretty hard to pull off, and you might need to change up your binds or contort your hand like me to actually do this successfully. I'd recommend practicing it at dummies until you can actually get it down before trying to do it at AOD. Until then, I'd still recommend doing 5-tick auto attacking, but just using a cleave so that you don't have to change weapons after the auto attack. It's going to make it much easier, and you're not going to lose a whole lot of damage. The reason why there's a 5-tick auto attack there in the first place is the same reason why we waited 2 ticks in phase 1 to barge in. The last tick of the Zerk ability will stack with the aura, and doing a 5-tick auto attack just so happens to line that up pretty perfectly here. So we want to use the highest damage ability that we can, which in this case is going to be a flank, and it'll do a lot of damage. Obviously, it's still really good to use any ability, so that's why it's totally okay to use a cleave until you can practice this enough to make it work. Another thing to keep in mind is that your phase 3 is probably not going to be over right as you finish this rotation unless you're on like a sub 220 team. So you're going to have to fill it in with at least a couple more abilities, and probably a lot more abilities if you're on a slower team. So usually what I try to do is get in a couple more 188s, maybe a Sever and a Cleave, and then do a Greater Fury Forceful Backhand if I have time for that, and shortening it as needed. And then if the phase is even longer than that, then obviously I'll try to just throw in some more thresholds and 188s as I can. The important thing to know here is you want to be a 50% adrenaline or above as you go to the first pillar. Okay, so that's phase 3. I would say that this is one of the easier phases in terms of getting perfect or near perfect DPS compared to the other ones where there's a lot of tricks and mechanically difficult things. That doesn't mean the rotation here is easy, because it's not, but it just takes a bit of practice in kills, and then once you've mastered the rotation, you won't really need to worry too much about phase 3. The biggest mistakes that I see people doing on this phase are probably just misluring a minion or accidentally blocking someone else's, or like icing the team or something. It's never anything about the rotation itself. Sometimes, of course, there's people who are just not even doing the rotation, or they're not aware of the rotation, but as long as you know the rotation that you should be doing and you're practicing toward that, then you'll be totally fine. Alright, so I think that's everything for phase 3. Thank you guys very much for watching. If I missed something, or if you have any questions, just leave a comment, and I will see you guys in the phase 4 video, which is arguably the phase where you're missing the most DPS, so stay tuned for that one. Bye.